Welcome back. Today we're going to review the Mortal Kombat movie. I will be providing you a nutshell version for those who are looking to avoid spoilers and a more in-depth version on my thoughts. Let's get started.
For the 24 years of my life, almost 25 years of my life, I've been waiting for a Mortal Kombat movie to come in theaters. 1997, I was only 1 year old, and of course, I would not have any conscience of watching that movie in the theaters by any means for Annihilation, and honestly, I'm glad that I didn't. Even though I do admit it was a guilty pleasure of mine in the past, I still would not say that it is a good movie theater experience, but a good straight to DVD or straight to video service. Even though DVD did start in 1996, with this come out and I saw the line of what it's gonna be, I was super skeptical about it because it just looked terrible and it sounded terrible on paper. But watching the trailer, it looked amazing, and after watching the movie, I'm glad I watched it and it was great. I even saw the movie twice in one day. And that's how great it is. I'm going to go ahead and give a one nutshell version because there's people who are just very curious on how the rundown is. I'm going to give a quick way without spoiling way too much. But if I did slip up, that's only because I really had to, and I'm sorry about that. So let's go ahead and get started over here.
In a nutshell, you have Hanzo Hasashi and Bi-Han fight it out. Like in the war, Hanzo dies and becomes Scorpion. 400 years later, Cole Young, new to the series, was introduced and was founded by Jax. He was explained that they were chosen along with others to compete in the tournament to make sure the Outworld does not control Earthrealm, just like in the games except Young, of course. Turns out when they go to Raiden's temple that is not what this seems to be. Like in the past movie lore, Shang Tsung decides to start conflict before the tournament. He goes all the way out with big fighters, Mileena, Cabal, Sub-Zero, and Kano. And you also have Nitaro and Kano. I gotta say, they really made Nitaro drop dead. After finding and defeating the character, Shang Tsung decides, okay, fine, we'll wait for the tournament. And the movie ends with finding Johnny Cage.
So that's the movie overall. It was a great story. Pacing could be better, but it was not as terrible as some movies that we know. And I'm sure in the sequel, there's going to be a tournament and maybe a Outworld invasion already to begin with at the same time. So let's see how that goes. Let's go ahead and start up with the much more in-depth detail of the movie. Major spoilers will be presented from this point on in the video. Out of respect of individuals with no theater access or HBO access during these times in the world, I ask for you to watch at your own discretion. If you watched the movie and you did not like the movie, I highly suggest you wait it out and hear my explanation. That way you can understand where I'm getting at as far as how the movie was good in my eyes, especially somebody who has followed the lore all of his life. Even though I was born in 1996, the series started years later, I was able to get access to the original games even at a young age. The story started out with Hanzo Hasashi in Japan, the year 1617 to be exact. After a time of peace, Bi-Han came and decided to kill Hanzo's wife and eldest son. After they battled it out, Hanzo dies and Bi-Han was injured. So Sub-Zero did get the scar, but it's not a straight line over the eye like you see in the movie. It was an actual scar over the cheek. It was still a scar nonetheless, but it is not something that you'll be able to see. Some people may not like that, as it is quite a bit of a trademark for Sub-Zero, but the truth is really more of Kuai Liang's scar over the eye that you see in the games, especially in the original timeline, so it could definitely go either way for me. After Hanzo dies, Raiden shows up and took Hanzo's young daughter, who was only a baby, and they took her to Raiden's temple to hide her from the Lin Kuei. 400 years later, you see Cole Young, who actually does turn out later on that he is Hanzo Hasashi's descendant from the daughter that Raiden rescued. And so he has this mark on his chest that shows that he was chosen as a fighter to be in the tournament. But that is not only him that has it. Other people have it too. Jax has it. Kano has it. These guys had it because they killed other people who were either born with the mark or got the mark from someone else and is transferred to them, meaning they are chosen to be in the tournament. For Cole's case, it's a little bit different, and the reasoning being is because the logo is also explained to be a sign of the Hanzo Hasashi lineage. Meaning that Hanzo does have a little bit of a role in the Mortal Kombat tournament in some way, shape, or form. While the movie did not necessarily explain in depth on this case, I do have some theories as to why that could be the case, and it could be explained on in the future movies and the sequels, or even some spin-offs that they say they might plan if the movie did very well. Over the weekend, it seems to be do very well, especially for pandemic numbers. Not as much as Godzilla vs. Kong, but still great enough that I think there is going to be a sequel and more movies to be made in that universe. Hashtag continue the Mortal Kombat verse. After Jax found Cole, escaped him from Sub-Zero, Jax went ahead and fought Sub-Zero, and lost his arms in battle. Kano, Sonya, and Cole fought Reptile, where in the movie, which I love, they named him Zyzoth, which was established in Mortal Kombat X as Reptile's true name.
Step aside, Zyzoth.
You know my true name.
And the path to your defeat.
While Reptile himself was a full-on reptilian, which in my opinion is probably the best look for Reptile in the Deadly Alliance game, in this movie, it really was not a good look for him by any means. But I do hope that he's going to be brought back in a different form later on. After finding Raiden's temple, they meet Liu Kang, and they meet Kung Lao, and they meet Raiden for the very first time. Liu Kang and Kung Lao were not the chosen fighters of the tournament necessarily, but they are during Raiden's temple to help Sonya, Jax, Kano, and Cole find their Arcana, which is the movie's explanation on how ordinary characters, ordinary human beings, have some supernatural abilities. In the game's lore, it was explained for Johnny Cage that he was a descendant of some ancient beings that got him the energy that he gets in the games. So in this movie, it was explained that they achieve an Arcana from training for Sonya and Jax, along with Cole himself and Kano. For Kano's is very weird because they made it to where his laser eye was his Arcana. I would prefer a eye transplant for him personally. Speaking of Kano, the acting for Kano was tremendous, and the actor did a great part for him. I think his approach in the movie definitely it should be what we'll be seeing in the future games later on. With Kano, his Arcana was found through a roast game between Liu Kang and Kung Lao to go against Kano, and Kano go ahead and get so pissy. Obviously, that's his nature. And so when that happened, so the other characters find their own Arcana later on. Sonya later on got her Arcana after killing Kano, and so she shoots these beams that you have in the game, and she went on ahead and killed Mileena. Liu Kang already had his Arcana for the longest time, obviously, by nature, and he killed Cabal with his Fire Dragon Fatality. Jax killed Reiko with his Head Clap Fatality. Kung Lao fought Nitara and killed her with his Buzzsaw Hat Fatality, even though the fight was just super short. I would have loved to see more Nitara, but they wanted to kill her off because, of course, you have the toxic fans who hate the 3D era, which, in my opinion, has showed off the best lore next to the original trilogy. Despite the story, there was no tournament in this movie. Well, actually, let me put it to you this way.
Yes, but actually no.
The tournament did not start yet because Shang Tsung decided to go on ahead and start a conflict between Earthrealm's warriors, just like he will do in the past movies. Raiden tried to stop him, and they just ended up breaking Raiden's barrier and started to attack the Shaolin monks and the warriors. This was started because Cabal happened to convince Kano to join their side, join Shang Tsung's side, and break the barrier and go ahead and fight Sonya, Jax, and the others. At the end, once all the characters dead, Garo, Mileena, Cabal, Reiko, the final fight come in, which to me is probably one of the greatest fights in the movie, and it's definitely the biggest fan service that we will ever see. Sub-Zero versus Scorpion. So yes, Hanzo Hasashi came back as Scorpion to fight Sub-Zero. Now in the movie, Cole Young was fighting Sub-Zero before Hanzo Hasashi or Scorpion decided to show up. During the fight, Sub-Zero froze Cole's family, and he was trying to rescue him for most of the fight. The fight, thankfully, was mostly Scorpion versus Sub-Zero and not much of Cole Young fighting Sub-Zero. It was more of a Cole Young and Scorpion tag team later on in the fight. At the end, it was Sub-Zero who dies by Scorpion's Toasty fatality. After Sub-Zero dies, the Scorpion go ahead and tell Young that he was free and that he should take care of the bloodline later on. What I'm very happy about, and this rumor was debunked after the movie is now released, I am so thankful that Scorpion's persona was not transferred over to Cole Young, because that would have ruined the movie and I would have hated it forever. I do not want Cole Young to be Scorpion ever. It should always be Hanzo Hasashi, and it was established that it's going to stay Hanzo Hasashi. So this opened the doors for the sequels and spin-off that Scorpion is going to come back as Hanzo Hasashi and not Cole Young. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I'm looking forward to see Sub-Zero becoming Noob Saibot later on. After the fight, Raiden and Shang Tsung just had it out verbally. Shang Tsung says that the death is only just a phase, and that he's going to come back at this time for the tournament for real. I do think that the next movie is going to show a little bit of the tournament, and I think there's going to be an invasion afterwards. I don't think the next movie, personally, is going to be a tournament-only movie, because I feel like it would downgrade the story just a little bit from pre-tournament to tournament, in the tournament where there are rules. Yes, but not really. But rules nonetheless. So I think there's going to be a little bit of that, and then Shao Kahn comes in later on. I see that happening. People may not like the pacing, but I think that is what's going to happen, and I think it's going to be pulled off very well, like in this movie. Thank you guys for joining in once again. Like I said, I really do love this movie, and I'm so excited for any sequels to come out, especially seeing that this movie is successful. Go ahead and subscribe and like this video to see more reviews, and I'm going to have more coming all the way. Until then, my Errata Knights, be prepared.
Toasty 3D!